day, Mishmash listeners, Mishmash Men listeners. Welcome to another episode. This is episode 17 of the podcast. We're glad you're here. I hope you enjoyed last week's on the Stanley Milgram experiments. This week, to my right, is my partner, Dusty Labar.
Hello, everybody.
How do you do today?
I'm doing great now that you're sitting on my left.
All right, perfect.
Yep.
I know that drives some people crazy because
Yeah.
I'm on that side.
Yeah.
With you're on that side in reality. But,
Yeah.
you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, think about it like this. We don't care.
Yeah. 1,000%.
Yeah,
we don't care.
1,000%.
Yeah.
But what we do care about is awesome T-shirts.
That's right.
Yep.
Where do I get some awesome T-shirts?
You can go to Charlie Mike Never Weekend. They're awesome apparel company. I'm wearing my classic Zuckerberg versus Musk shirt today. I like to wear one of these shirts on every podcast. They can literally do any T-shirt you want from the smallest order to the largest order. They're super easy to work with. You can actually go on their website, charliemikeneverweekend.com, I believe. May have to check me on that. But you just search them. They'll pop right up on the internet. You can go right to their website, and they have a bunch of pre-selected T-shirts that you can buy. You can buy our Mishmash Men T-shirt there.
That's right.
RFTB Studios, Reaching for the Bars podcast, plus a bunch of other cool shirts. So make sure you guys go there for all your T-shirt needs.
And if you can't remember that link, if you go to our link tree, which should be in all of our podcast and YouTube information, that's one of the links is to Charlie Mike for our shirt, and maybe you can just order like 8 or 10 more of those shirts.
Yeah, I mean, if one is good, 10 is 10 times better.
Yes.
100%. 1,000%.
Yeah, 1,000. So what's on tap for today, Dusty, is a little break from what our normal topics have been, but this is why we call it the Mishmash Men.
Because we do mishmash stuff.
We do a variety of things. So just an open-ended question for you. Have you ever noticed common themes among stories? Like, well, I've kind of seen this before, but it was in another episode of whatever.
So when you brought this up, the thing that popped into my head was that, like, if you look on Instagram or anything, people will be like, did you ever notice that Star Wars is the same as this? Like, they're using the same.
Like Harry Potter?
Yeah, like whatever it is. Like, there's a this guy, and he's overcoming this. And then when you brought the topic up, and I started looking through it, I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense.
It does, yeah. So there's a lot of similarities, and people have pointed out. One of the common ones, and I can't remember, we were talking about the gym one day, about the similarities between like Harry Potter and Star Wars.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That is the one. Right.
And so, like, I'll just briefly go through this. It's kind of funny. So you have a hero, which is a kid.
Yep.
A reliable friend, Han Solo, and I don't know anything about Harry Potter, but that redheaded kid.
Ron Weasley.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll help you with this.
There you go.
Yep.
And then the female friend.
Hermione.
Or Princess Leia.
Princess Leia. Yep.
The hairy friend. You have Chewbacca and...
who's the hairy friend?
The guy with the beard and the big...
Oh, Hagrid.
Okay.
Hagrid.
You got the old, wise, bearded teacher.
Yep.
Obi-Wan.
Oh, yeah. Obi-Wan and Dumbledore.
Mm-hmm. The bald mini teacher. Yoda.
Who's the bald teacher in Harry Potter?
Picture.
Oh, this guy?
No.
Oh, I don't know his name. He's a minor character to me.
Okay.
Some kind of smaller human, or not human, humanoid creature.
You got the pale, deformed bad guy,
Yeah.
Anakin, when he's Darth Vader, and then this guy.
The guy you should never
no
say
nose.
his name. Yeah, Voldemort.
The uncle.
And that is Uncle.
Yeah.
You're right.
Special ability
Yeah.
with the Force and whatever Harry Potter magic. Special weapons.
Yep.
Magic wand or a lightsaber.
Yep.
Robes.
They do all wear robes.
They all have robes,
Yep,
which are
that's right.
cool. And then you got some other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I won't go into that.
I love it. I saw. Yeah. It's perfect.
So anyway, those are that was just a funny little thing that got me looking into that. Something for the podcast, which would be something I'd heard of before. Did a little research, and there was a guy that wrote a book. His name is Christopher Booker.
What a great name if you're going to write a book.
It's like
It's the best name.
It's like Seinfeld character, the library cop.
Yeah.
Bookman.
Yeah. It's like if your name was John Novel, you're in it.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
I'm going to be a writer.
Yeah. I got to do it.
I'm not going to be an accountant.
Yeah, that's the worst decision you can make.
So, and he wrote this book called The 7 Basic Plots, Why We Tell Stories. And he just aggregates a lot of stories and distills it down to these 7 common themes. I'm going to read through them real quick, and what I figure we'll do is just talk about each one and maybe some of our favorite movies or stories. It doesn't have to be movies.
Yeah. It's
it could
going to be
stories.
mostly movies for me.
Okay.
Okay.
and then we'll just we'll call it good.
Good. I like it.
So the 7 are Overcoming the Monster.
Yep.
That's number 1. Number 2 is Rags to Riches.
Yep.
Number 3 is The Quest.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, Voyage and Return.
Okay.
Number 5 is Comedy. Number 6 is Tragedy. And number 7 is Rebirth.
Okay.
And then you can have, that's not to say that every story, you can only pick one.
Right.
There's usually a combination, especially for something like Star Wars or Harry Potter, where you have these multiple movies, and there's different themes on each one, and there can be different themes within each movie.
Gotcha.
But generally, there are these same common themes throughout.
So is he saying that you can't get away from these 7? Like you can't come up with something new. This is the 7 things that you can do.
This is it. This is only so many ways you can tell the story.
Gotcha.
And then that's it. That's all she wrote.
So my new goal is to come up with a different way to tell a story. I'll figure it out.
I will help you.
Okay.
I'll help you.
Yeah, let's do it.
We could challenge our listeners also.
Yeah, come up with a different type of story type besides these 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got a couple
They can't be otherwise explained.
Yes, correct.
So first one, Overcoming the Monster. And this is where the protagonist faces great evil or monster, which is the antagonist. And it doesn't have to be a literal monster. It can be a figurative monster.
Sure.
But what's some movies or stories that exemplify that?
So So I'm looking at some of these. I did some research before this, so but correct me if I'm wrong. Jaws was the first one that made total sense because that's a literal overcoming the literal like sea monster.
That's right.
Star Wars, Harry Potter, right? Beowulf.
Yeah, Beowulf.
War of the Worlds.
War
of the Worlds. I'm trying to think if there's any. They said James Bond on this one, but I guess I'm not sure exactly which movie. But I don't know which movie he'd be overcoming the monster. I
guess if you characterize, the name escapes me now, but the Spectre as the monster.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
He's always overcoming that.
That's right.
I mean, it all started with Dr. No, and that was like...
Oh, so Austin Powers?
Yeah,
true. He's over... But that's also comedy, so I tag team 2 of them there together.
That's right.
Yeah, I did it.
Double tap.
Yeah. So the easy ones are the ones where they're actually overcoming monsters. That's like a pretty like on the nose.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are I lost some of my my research that I had ready to go. Oh, here it is. I just scrolled a little too fast. So some of the Greek myths. So a lot of our stories that we see today are rebadged and refashioned off of Greek myths.
Right.
And then Roman myths were basically rebadged off of Greek myths. So the Greeks were prolific civilization-wise, they were prolific writers,
right.
And we have the chance to read a lot of that writing, and so that's why we refer to them. They weren't the ones that came up with these,
right.
but
right.
It's something that we can refer to. So Perseus and Medusa. So Perseus fought Medusa.
Yeah,
that was the snake-head lady.
There's a movie about Perseus, but I forget what it is. That's like the actual. It's like a more recent movie. But I can't remember it. It'll come to me. But yeah, but I do remember that because Perseus, he's the main character in that movie, and he obviously travels and fights Medusa, which is literally overcoming the monster.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally. And in the Roman version of that is Hercules and the Nemean lion.
Yeah. Whose story did they fight the Minotaur in the maze?
Oh, that's a good one.
Is that Perseus? I
don't remember. That's a good question. Well, I'm not going to write it down.
It's okay. It's okay. We have it. It just made me sound smart. That's all. Like I read.
You are smart.
Well, sometimes depends. I do. That's one of the things that you read like in high school. All those stories.
Yeah.
And I think that they ring true. Like you can kind of remember all. Like that's what just popped into my head was like, oh, there's a story part of that where he's fighting the Minotaur.
Yeah.
And it, like really sticks out. So I'm sure we'll get into more of these as these go on, like more Greek stories.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like you said, you read those. Some of these are difficult to read. Mm-hmm. They're complicated, but that doesn't make them that in some ways, not always. In some ways, it makes them a little more memorable.
Yeah.
Because it's more the structure is a little more complicated. Distilled, it's the same thing, but it makes that complication. It made your brain exercise a little bit more, perhaps.
Or is it the Iliad and the Odyssey? They're like the giant, like weren't they? Like I remember getting those books in college maybe, and they were like, read this, and I was like,
yeah,
my God, that's a story.
Those are epics.
Yes, epics.
Yeah. One thing on Jaws.
Yeah.
Not necessarily related to this, but my favorite scene of that movie is the speech that Quinn gives about being on the USS Indianapolis.
Okay.
And like, because before then, there's a threshold has been passed.
Mm-hmm.
Up to that point, Quinn is just this crotchety guy, and they just don't like him. The two guys that are on his boat, especially the college kid, Richard Dreyfuss.
Right.
And the sheriff tolerates him. And then they start talking about scars, and the college kid, Richard Dreyfuss's character, gets a little more because he's got scars, and so they're connecting.
Yeah.
They have something relatable.
Gotcha.
And then they ask about, this scar that he's got, and he starts talking. He is Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
Gives a speech about how he was on the USS Indianapolis, and this is a true story.
Yeah.
Not Quinn, but
I got
where they were delivering the atomic bomb, and they got sunk after they delivered it.
Oh boy.
And because it was such a secret mission, nobody knew.
Gotcha.
So they're in waters that are shark infested. And he starts telling this story. And I heard, I don't know if this is true or not, that Robert Shaw, the guy that played Quinn, was actually kind of half in the back, half drunk when he gave the speech.
Okay.
Or like when he gave that speech, he started, he wasn't, but then, due to editing and stuff like that. And he gives his speech, and it was just like, the guys were just like dumbfounded, just talking. It's such a good
speech.
It's a good scene.
Yeah.
I'll watch that, and I showed it to the kids. He's got that scene about like Dull's eyes.
Yeah. I need to go back and watch that movie. It's been a long time since I saw that. I think I went to, what was it, Universal Studios that had that? That had the ride. I think I went there when I was a kid and I was traumatized, and it took me a while to like watch it when I was growing up because I was like, this seems, obviously now it's not as terrifying because you're like, well, CGI is amazing now.
That's the thing. It's like I hear some people watch that movie now that have never seen it before, and they think it's comical because the shark is so
like
bad.
animatronic.
Yeah.
But I mean, times they are changing.
And they were supposed to have more of the shark, but it was so bad they edited a lot of that out.
That's interesting.
And it made it more spooky because it was largely unseen.
Yeah, because you were waiting for it. You're pretty much I got
it was more suspenseful. Yeah. But anyway, we digressed a little bit, but that was pretty good. Overcoming the monster. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, rags to riches, and so no explanation necessary.
The first one that popped in my head, and it's on this list, was Aladdin. That's like a classic when I was growing up, and I was like, well, that's Aladdin because he's like a street rat. Then all of a sudden he's got a genie.
Right.
And then he, obviously marries the princess or whatever, and now he's the man.
Right.
So that was the first one. Cinderella.
Yep, Cinderella.
Here's just a story. The Ugly Duckling.
That's similar, yeah.
And here's one that was on the list that I think is really funny, is The Jerk, which is one of my favorite movies.
I didn't see that on the list.
Yeah.
It wasn't on my list, but I put that down because it is a rags to riches story.
I couldn't love a movie more than I love that movie.
Yeah, I have several movies like that that are like a guilty, guilty pleasure that I have to watch those.
When they're shooting at him and they're hitting
these cans.
Somebody hates these cans.
And he escapes in a tireless car, which just break drums.
That is such a good movie.
Yeah, the Jerk.
Yeah. What else?
I didn't think it would happen to me.
Yeah. What else do you have for rags to riches?
So we listed. I wrote The Jerk, Slumdog Millionaire.
Oh yeah. And I couldn't remember the name, but there's one with Will Smith.
Pursuit of Happiness.
Pursuit of Happiness.
Yep. I saw neither of those movies, but I'm sure they're very good.
Pursuit of Happiness is like a true story.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy has obviously it's like the ultimate, he has nothing. Him and his son are homeless, and then he puts himself to be basically a stockbroker and makes all this money. But it's you feel bad because it's a true story, and it's his kid. They don't have any money. He was trying to sell. It's really funny because when you think back that they did this, but he was trying to sell to doctors mobile X-ray machines. And all the doctors were like, why would I even use this? It's a terrible thing to get into. He had bought, how those schemes work. It's almost like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah.
You spend your life savings on all these X-ray machines and you try to sell them to doctors, but none of the doctors want them. So, he's just I got to sell.
So then you realize why you were given such a good deal.
Yeah. They're basically giving them away. The Pursuit of Happiness, but they spell it weird. That's right.
So some of the classics, King Midas,
Okay.
and there was a guy, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name, Dionysus.
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 Yep.
And so he tricked him, and the Roman myth was the founding of Rome.
Okay.
So,
Dionysus. He was a god, right? Or was
yeah,
he
he
not?
was.
He is a god of something. For sure. Something.
Yeah, Dionysus was the guy that gave King Midas
Oh,
the
gotcha.
power
Gotcha.
to
That's
turn
right.
things to
That's
gold.
right. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Okay, and there was a famous series of books. I was going to look it up for this, but I lost track of time. That were like dime store novels back at the turn of the last century, 18 to 1900s.
Okay.
That were famous. Now it's going to drive me crazy. I'll ask Abby, the intern, to do a little research and maybe pull
to
that up.
post something. Yeah.
Yeah. The next one is The Quest. The Quest, and this is where someone goes out on a quest. They're given a quest. They internally, and then they go out, and then they return.
Yep. I like it. Some of the ones that I picked up: the Iliad.
Yep.
Lord of the Rings. The Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah, that's a good quest.
Which also,
The Black Knight.
yeah. Just a flesh wound. That stupid stuff makes you laugh like so hard, even when you're older. Like when they're riding on the horse and he's
with the coconut halves.
Yeah. That's so funny. I love that.
And that rabbit thing, I forget the name of the rabbit, but
I can't remember now.
They were mocking, just lays waste to everybody.
I mean, it is so funny. The Iliad is like he comes back. Now I'm going to sound so stupid. The Odyssey isn't that Odyssey also a quest?
Yeah, Odyssey's a quest for sure. Iliad, I'm pretty sure is.
Because in one of the stories, doesn't he not come back in that story?
Yeah, I'm
right.
You got me.
I can't remember now.
I didn't brush up on even though I have a list here.
Well, I was just trying to think. Like, I felt like one of them when I read these examples, I was like, doesn't one of them he doesn't come back, or he comes back, but it's like 50 years later, maybe.
Here we go. Odysseus. This is the Odyssey.
Yeah.
Odysseus embarks on a long and arduous journey back home to Ithaca, facing mythical creatures and challenges along the way.
I'm sorry. The Iliad, it's when he goes to war, right? It's the Trojan War. It's not the Trojan War. It's Trojan War. The Iliad is when he goes to war and comes back, and then he leaves again on the quest, which I think is the Odyssey. I think.
All right. Iliad is a poem about Ilium, or Troy. It's one of two major ancient Greek epic poems attributed to Homer, not Simpson.
Yep.
It is one of the oldest extant works of literature widely. Okay, let me get to the plot. Okay. It covers a lot of material.
I think the Iliad is, or I'm going to say this wrong. I think the movie Troy is loosely based on the Iliad. Like it's that battle.
I think so, because there's so many. It talks about the Trojan Wars.
Yes.
There's 4 different books. There's a whole lot of material there that maybe we'll do what we should do, because we had talked about doing this when I first came up with the idea for the 7 basic story types, with some of the classic Greek and Roman stories that might be familiar today.
Yeah.
And then I stumbled down this path of the 7 types. Yeah, so maybe we could do we could pick 3 each or something.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I like that.
Give us that feedback, listeners.
Yeah, I like it.
And viewers.
Yeah, so we're still. Oh wait.
Raiders of the Lost Ark was one of my favorites.
I have a question. Is the quest and voyage and return different? Are they different story types? That's what it is, isn't it?
That's a good question.
I think voyage and return is a different. Let me check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, they're different.
7. Yeah, they're different. So the quest. So voyage and return. Right. I was right. Okay. So the Odyssey, he leaves and comes back. Odysseus.
Yeah.
And the Iliad, I think, is about that war, and that's why it's different. Okay. Got it. I'm good.
The quest, the protagonist embarks on a journey or a quest to achieve a goal.
Yep.
Often involving the overcoming of obstacles and challenges along the way.
Right.
It could be physical or a metaphorical journey.
Yep.
And then the voyage and return, protagonist goes on a journey to a strange or foreign place, experiences adventures, and then returns home transformed.
They're very similar. But yes.
The quest would be more like, for sure, like Raiders of the Lost Ark is definitely a quest.
Yeah.
The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it's
quest.
Yeah.
Voyage and return would be the Odyssey.
I'm looking some other here. Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, apparently.
Yeah.
The Time Machine, Gone with the Wind, The Lion King. Oh, The Lion King.
The Lion King. That's right.
Here's one that I didn't think about, which makes total sense. Back to the Future.
Yeah. It's just a different time.
It's just time. Yeah, he goes out. The Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yeah, that was a Babylonian.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the Epic of Gilgamesh.
There's a lot of similarities between Gilgamesh and Scripture, actually, where people will compare the two together.
That's right. That's where I've heard that before. That's right. Do you have any other ones for the Quest or Voyage and Return?
The Odyssey was the Quest.
The Odyssey was Voyage and Return. The Iliad was the Quest.
Well, this reference that I have also, he called them both.
I mean, I feel like they're both almost.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's a fine line between the two.
Yeah.
Excuse me. All right, so next one is Voyage and Return.
Yep.
Which we beat to death.
Let's not stop now.
So we'll just keep on a trucking. So the ones I had were Alice's Adventures in Wonderland.
Yep, I see that
Voyage and Return, and Wizard of Oz.
Yep. Oh, Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. The Wizard of Oz. Okay.
And then, did you have any that for Voyage and Return?
I said the Odyssey. That was Goldilocks and the Three Bears, The Lion King, Back to the Future. I'm not familiar with this one. It's The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. That's I haven't seen that or read that. But it's like
C.S. Lewis.
C.S. Lewis. That's right.
It's an allegory to Christianity.
Yep.
So it's really good as well.
And then Peter Pan.
Oh yeah, Voyage and Return.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The any of those movies that you remember that like were like when you watched it when you were younger, it was just always memorable, and you still watch it and you kind of harken back?
Yeah, so not Peter Pan, but Hook with Robin Williams. Like I remember that, like Rufio. Did you ever see that movie?
I saw it, but I
guess because I was pretty young.
I was in my 20s.
Yeah, so I was younger when I saw it, but I remember them chanting Rufio, like Rufio.
Was that one of the bad boys?
Yeah, it was one of that crew. Like he was like the leader of like the bad boys.
Okay.
What did they call them? What were the Lost Boys?
Lost Boys. Yeah, Bad Boys is a different movie.
Yeah, Bad Boys with Will Smith and
Martin Lawrence.
Yeah, Martin Lawrence. That's right. So like obviously now like Lion King, and I'm a big Back to the Future guy. I could sit down and watch any three. The third one is, but I could watch any of the Back to the Futures like right now.
That's interesting because I like the first and the third one.
Yeah.
Third one's a little too campy, but the second one I just can't tolerate for some reason.
So the second one's my favorite. That's really funny. The second one's my favorite. I don't know why.
Here's why I think I didn't like the second one. So the first one, you watch it, and it was clear that they were setting up, but it was so innovative and new.
Yeah.
And remember, I saw these movies. They were date movies for Jennifer and me.
Okay.
So you go to the theaters, you see the second one, and it was literally a 2-hour commercial for the third one. That's all it was. It was this transition piece. It was okay. Because you get the end of it, and then they're out in the Wild West.
Yeah, I mean, I like the storyline of them in the Wild West the best.
Yeah.
The storyline of the Wild West is the best. I hate the ending with the train. I have a really hang up. I know that he.
You mean when it got magical?
Yeah, like I know. Like every time I say this, they're like, "He made a flying car and it went back to the future." And you're mad about the train. It's like it just seems like you just didn't do it. Like it's a giant train.
Not even trying.
Yeah,
it's like the Death Star in the third set of movies.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Come on, again with another Death Star.
Like, and they're in the writer's room. They're like, hold on a second. What if instead of a car, it's a train? Everybody's like, my God, it's amazing.
And it travels time. But it's a train this time.
This time it's a train. It's like, is it a steam train? They're like, well, I mean, what else would it be?
Yeah.
It's got to be steam.
It's wood-powered time-traveling train.
Yeah, it's pretty on par with what we've been doing. It's like, well, at the end, should the train also fly? It's like, yeah, why not? We just make the train fly. Yeah, who cares?
1,000%.
1,000%.
That's funny. All right. So the two Voyage and Return we already talked about.
Yeah.
The Aeneid. You read it? Any of that?
Aeneid?
Yeah.
I don't know that one.
Aeneas journeys from Troy to Italy, encountering various trials and setbacks before ultimately reaching his destination.
Oh, that's good.
I didn't read it. I know we read pieces and parts of it at times.
The Aeneid?
Aeneid.
Okay, I've seen the word before. Okay, I gotcha.
I'm not big into Latin, so I'm not sure how they pronounce it. It's tricky.
They don't pronounce it at all anymore.
There's a lot of vowels.
Yeah, too many vowels.
Next type is comedy.
My favorite.
I like comedies. The Jerk.
Jerk.
Does this fall into that?
Yeah, I mean, it's literally any movie, right? Any movie that I like that's funny is just a comedy.
Right.
Right. So I mean, Step Brothers, Anchorman, all the Will Ferrell movies. Do you like Will Ferrell? Are you a Will Ferrell guy?
I like Will Ferrell, but at times. I mean, the guy is so funny. He can be so funny. He goes a little too blue for me sometimes.
Yes, yeah.
But man, that guy can deliver a line like no other.
So here's why I think, like, when I think of comedy movies, I think of him. It's like I was in high school, like when movies were really making a big impact on my life.
Yeah.
He was big. Like he was just getting big. Like that's when Step Brothers started to come out, and Anchorman specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I ever remember laughing as hard as I did as being like a sophomore or junior in high school and seeing Anchorman and just being like dying laughing because it was like the funniest thing I've ever seen.
That is a funny movie.
It is. I mean, it's the best movie, I think.
The scene with what's that guy, the small guy that played in Ant-Man?
Paul Rudd.
When he's got the cologne, he goes, it's got
Odeon
bits
by
of
Sex Panther.
got bits of real panther.
Yeah.
60% of the time, it works every time.
He's like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, how many times do you think somebody said, like, counted to 1,000, like doing anything, and been like, I don't know if you just heard me, but I did over 1,000.
There's a guy I still work for, but I've worked for him several times. He was big in Anchorman, and he is constantly with the Anchorman quotes. Mm-hmm. It's funny. It's like you can chum the waters a little bit. And you throw out an Anchorman quote, and he'll finish it like spot on. It's hilarious.
Jogging or yogging? I mean, I think that
I have many leather-bound books. I'm kind of a big deal. I love that line.
It is. I mean, it is one of my favorites.
So some of the other comedies I wrote down, Much Ado About Nothing. It's a Shakespeare.
Yep.
I don't know. Have you watched many Shakespeare plays, like when they do them as movies?
I've watched the Leonardo DiCaprio Romeo and Juliet was a Baz Luhrmann, right? That's Baz Luhrmann, I think, because it's all funky and weird.
I know. I remember the movie that they redid it, but
because it's like they did it modern. Like they had guns, but they were also like it was like they were obviously they were reading the book, like the script. What else have I seen? Midsummer's Night Dream, Much Ado About Nothing, Taming of the Shrew.
Yep.
Yeah.
Measure for Measure is a good one.
But really the one that sticks out into my head that I've definitely seen is the Romeo and Juliet version. I've also seen the other Romeo and Juliet, the one that's not the Baz Luhrmann version.
Oh, there's a ton of movies.
One. I think it's with
treatments of it.
Claire Danes, maybe? Or is she in the Baz?
Oh, yeah. Wasn't she in the one with DiCaprio?
That's what I'm trying to remember. I can't remember now. Anyway, I mean, that's a pretty classic story.
Yeah.
Like, that's like a, is Romeo and Juliet? Oh, yeah, I brought it up. I was like, that's not a comedy.
No, it's
kind of
tragedy.
funny at the end.
Well, it's silly because, like, why didn't you just wait to see?
Yeah, it's just kids are stupid, man.
Yeah,
their prefrontal cortexes aren't formed yet.
No, they're not.
Yeah, so they're just. Well, I guess this guy wrote about it.
I like a lot of Shakespeare quotes, and he uses a lot of he invented a lot of terms.
Yeah.
That are still in use today.
Yeah.
But he's got such an he's a good writer, so he's got an artful way of saying certain things, and I lean on a lot of quotes. That I share with people.
Do you want to hear a funny story?
Absolutely.
I won't say the words that I said because we're a little more tactful on this podcast. When we were in high school, our English class, we had our English assignment was to write a poem in the style of Shakespeare. Just a short like little clip, just in the style of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
There was a teacher's assistant that we all thought just was a weird guy. He was just a weird guy. And we had nicknamed him. Somebody had said he looks like a guy with the name Booster. I don't know why. He's just a weird guy. And that has nothing to do with the vaccine. He just looked like a booster. And he was like this skinny guy. But the teacher had heard. I didn't know this time. But the teacher had heard that we all were calling him Booster. But we didn't know that he knew. And I wrote a poem, basically. And it was saying that this guy, I rhymed everything. And this guy ended up, the ending was pretty like aggressive for a high school class.
Yeah.
But I turned words around, and as soon as I finished the poem, like I said, and Booster loves this, and the professor stands up and he says, "Go to the office right now." And I was like, I didn't even say anything. I didn't say anything bad. He's like, "I know exactly what you meant. I'll tell you off air." Okay. It's really funny.
Booster.
Yeah, Booster. I don't know why my friend came up with that, but he did look like a booster.
Tragedy. A couple others I had were Macbeth. That's another Shakespeare one.
Yeah, tragedy.
Sisyphus.
Citizen Kane. Julius Caesar.
Yep. Hamlet.
Have you seen the new Hamlet? Oh, no, it's Hamilton. I'm an idiot.
All right.
Yeah.
No is the answer to that question. It's not that I've avoided it. It's just I haven't taken the time.
The Picture of Dorian Gray.
Yep.
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back. What do you think? Tragedy?
It depends on who you are, I guess.
Well, if you're a fan of Darth Vader, then obviously.
It's not. Yeah.
Like in the context, it's not that much of a tragedy,
Yeah.
but the movie ends like Luke's got his hand cut off.
Yeah,
he
yeah,
finds out that like he's related to the worst
The
villain
worst
of
human-
all time,
Yeah, the worst person in the galaxy.
or at least in movies. And so now like, and Han Solo's frozen.
Yes, yeah.
So-
I mean, it is pretty tragic ending to
Yeah.
to that movie.
But that's one of my favorites between that one and Rogue One. I love Rogue One.
So I have a question.
Yeah, that's another tragedy.
When you were watching the original Star Wars, the ones in the 70s and the 80s, like they came out as, what was it, 4, 5, and 6? Is that
They're
was that
in the like the ordinal. They are episodes 4, 5, and 6.
So what did you guys think? Did they tell you that like in 20 years we're gonna make 1, 2, and 3?
No,
So you were like, why are they episode 4, 5, and 6?
no, they didn't call them 4, 5.
Oh,
and
they
6.
didn't call them 4,
No.
5, and 6.
No, it was Star Wars. It wasn't A New Hope. It was Star Wars. Period. End of story.
Oh.
Star Wars, and then Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi, and that was it.
Dude, that just blew my mind. So when did that happen? Did it happen after 1, 2, and 3 came out, or did they start setting it up before those?
I think it was only after
The next-
1, 2, and 3.
Oh, interesting. Because I thought they were like, I was like, man, that's a long game. That's what I thought.
That
I was
is a
like,
long
That's
game.
a long game. Like you're gonna 20 years later, you're gonna come up with 1, 2, and 3.
I don't know if that was like the executed, like George Lucas executed to plan,
Yeah.
or it's just like, hey, we're still like, if you've got any more ideas about how you can tie
Yeah.
a prequel to this, and then he was working on it all along. I don't know what the plan was, but at any rate, when in like 98, 99,
Yeah.
98, I think is when episode 1 came out.
out.
I mean, because I saw Star Wars in theaters when I was like 7 or 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And you can imagine, like, that is exciting to a 7, 8-year-old.
Sure. Yeah. Of course.
Also saw Superman in theaters with Christopher Reeve.
Reeves. Yeah.
And like,
That's a tragedy.
that is a tragedy.
Mhm.
And so like 83, I think, is when Return of the Jedi came
Uh-huh.
out. So I was 13 years old, and then now, many, many years later, I was 28.
Right.
Then they come out with episode 1. It's just interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty crazy. How do you feel about the subsequent ones?
They were awful. That was what a missed opportunity.
I didn't like it.
I didn't like any of them.
I was
Like, try something different.
I watched them, and I even gave them a second chance, which I was like, maybe. So I watched the next 3, or the like in order, like so. What it's 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, 7, 8,
technically.
9. Yeah.
So I watched them, and then I was like, that was bad. Then I went back and I watched all the way from 1.
Yeah.
So I was like, I need to give this another shot, but I need to refresh myself on the story. Maybe part of the problem is I'm not good on the storyline.
Right.
And then I still got to him again, and I was riveted at 1 through 6.
Yeah.
And then when I got to 7, 8, 9, I was like, this is
That was
pretty
just
tough to
such a
watch.
miss. I mean, to just like rebadge everything just slightly different.
Yeah.
We have this 3 group of people, and we're going to throw in this extraneous character, Rose.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get it.
Rose?
I didn't get it.
And then, these people are betting on these strange animals. It's like basically thinly veiled horse racing betting. Has nothing to do with the story.
Right.
But we're just going to, and then Luke, like, who was like, he was hope exemplified.
Yes.
And through Luke, the prophecy in the canon anyway was fulfilled with Anakin bringing balance to the Force, right?
Right.
So he completes that
Right.
through him. And then, now he just turns this grumpy old guy.
Yeah,
Get
now-
off my lawn.
yeah, now
I'm going to
he's just-
drink some green milk. And
Now he's just a cranky guy.
what in the world were they thinking?
Like teach me the Force. He's like, no.
And I'm going to burn all these books too
Yeah.
that I've been keeping for
Yeah.
30 years.
He's like, do you like to read? Not anymore.
That was just awful.
I didn't like it.
And another Death Star.
Yeah, it's like basically the same thing.
So the movie that surprised me was Rogue One. I mentioned that before.
Yeah, I like Rogue One.
That was so good because it was fresh, innovative. It tied 2, 3, and 4 together, which was just,
Yep.
it didn't explain everything, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have to because there's a certain amount of
Yeah,
suspension
I
of
agree.
disbelief.
I think it was great. I think that was good.
And it was a tragedy.
It was.
Bring us back to that was a nice segue.
Nice, good job. I
Yeah.
like how we talked about the segue to make it really drive it in there.
Oh, you have to.
You have to let people know when you do a good job.
I'm going to pronounce it in the original tongue of Segu.
Segu.
Yeah.
I like that.
Last one is Rebirth. And so this is, I'll let you talk. I've been ranting for a
So
while.
I got a couple: Pride and Prejudice,
Ooh.
Beauty and the Beast,
Yep.
A Christmas Carol,
Yep.
and Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day.
I think they mean with Bill Murray. You know which movie that is?
Yeah, okay. You said Groundhog Day. I immediately thought, for some reason, Caddyshack.
I mean,
Because there was a ground.
I mean, that's kind of a rebirth, right?
That's why I was like,
Caddyshack could be a rebirth.
yeah, maybe.
It's got who's that really famous comedian in it?
Bill Murray.
No, yeah. But the other guy, Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah.
Rodney
Oh my
Dangerfield.
gosh.
Hey, it's a little hot in here. That was terrible. I'm sorry. I'll practice.
That was a good impression. I
Hey.
like that. So
Can't get no respect.
you mentioned Christmas Carol.
Yep.
Silver Linings Playbook.
I've heard of that. It's a movie. Girls like it, I think.
Yeah. What about so Star Wars? That was listed as a rebirth one. I don't know if I buy into that one.
I guess.
What's some others? The story of Persephone from Greek myths and Roman myths. Orpheus and Eurydice.
I've heard of that.
I haven't. I mean, I have, but I don't know
I
anything
didn't
about
read the
it
story.
beyond that.
I know this. I know the name of the story. I don't know the story.
Yeah.
So
there was one that was when we were talking, I was thinking of a rebirth that could make a good rebirth story, but it's beyond me now. I can't remember what it was. But any follow up on rebirth?
I don't have any good ones for rebirth anymore. Other than that, I'm sure there's some that we're missing. There's probably a lot of comedy that could be like that's a rebirth, like maybe the other guys.
Yeah.
They're down and out, and then all of a sudden they become these big heroes. That is a rebirth story.
Yeah.
That is a rebirth story. I nailed that one.
Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles.
Levon Little's character gets rebirthed as the sheriff.
Yep. Blazing Saddles. I guess Wyatt Earp. Is that rebirth? Probably not.
Maybe.
Maybe
Yeah.
so.
Because he denies,
Yeah.
and it finally is like, all right.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm bringing thunder with me.
There's a new sheriff in town.
That's a Tombstone.
Tombstone is a great movie.
That is one of my favorite movies of all time.
I watched it the other day, or a couple weeks ago, and Laura was like, "What are you watching?" I was like, "Probably one of the greatest westerns ever." I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, the
That is a
lines
great
from that movie.
They still get said today.
Yeah.
I'll be your Huckleberry.
So there's that whole controversy over I'll be your Huckleberry or I'll be your Hucklebearer.
Oh.
Have you heard that?
No, I did not know this.
Oh, yeah. This is a good one.
What is a Hucklebearer?
So Hucklebearer is a pallbearer because the three things
that
or
makes
six things.
way more sense.
Yes. Now, Val Kilmer says he said Huckleberry, but that doesn't mean it's actually true.
Oh.
That might not be what the writers intended. So Hucklebearer is someone that's a pallbearer at your funeral.
Oh.
So, I'm going to kill you. I'll be your Hucklebearer.
Basically, I'll carry your gasket.
Yes.
Well, interesting. So let me ask you a unbelievably stupid question, and just bear with me. So at the time that he was alive, was Huckleberry Finn was already written, correct? Just to be clear.
I don't know when Huckleberry Finn was written. It was probably around the
Pretty
same
close
time.
Pretty
Yeah,
close to the same time?
1880s, I would think.
Okay, so it's not too far off.
Yeah.
I'm not too far off. Yeah, okay. Okay, that makes me feel a little better.
But I'll be your Huckleberry. What would the context be?
I don't know, but it just sounds cool.
It does sound cool.
It sounds super cool.
Yeah.
Because everybody's like, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that is one of the best lines, I think. That is one of the best lines in movies.
That and Say When.
Yeah.
And Ike Clanton. I had his crew chief. So flying in a Black Hawk, the crew chief flies with you. He's a maintenance guy, and he's the door gunner also. So Matt Beatty, I think it was his name, but he quoted, like he could quote any line from Tombstone. He must have saw the movie a million times.
Oh my God.
And like it was to the point where like as soon as I got back from that deployment, I had to watch Tombstone again because I was like, these lines are so good, and I never picked up on it because they're so fast. And a lot of them were the Ike Clanton lines.
Oh, okay.
Because he would say the craziest stuff.
Yeah.
But he said it so fast. That actor Steven, I forget his last name, but he's really good.
Do you feel like they made a lot of those era movies back then, like Dances with Wolves? They made Tombstone. Wyatt Earp was around that time.
Yeah.
Isn't there a lot of movies like around that early 90s, late 80s that they made a lot of that style movie?
Like the cowboy movies?
Cowboy, with that time frame.
They kind of go in cycles because, the heyday of cowboy movies was the 50s.
Yeah.
And then
Spaghetti
Sputnik
westerns.
launches.
What is it? Sputnik.
Sputnik launches, and then everything's about space and all that. Star Trek.
Yeah.
All the way through Star Wars. And in the early 80s, they started to come back again. Silverado came out. Clint Eastwood made a number of 80s cowboy movies.
Yeah.
And then he had a sweet spot like Tombstone, late like 1989 is when that came out.
Yeah, it's pretty. I was saying like late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, they're great movies, all of them. Like I like Wyatt Earp. I like Tombstone,
The Magnificent Seven.
Magnificent Seven. There's another one that I'm missing, but they're all fantastic. They're all fantastic.
Some of those older
Young Guns.
I wasn't a Young Guns fan.
Young Guns.
I'm just not a big fan.
Does that have Emilio Estevez in it? Is that
Yeah,
who I'm
Emilio
thinking? Okay.
Estevez, Lou Diamond Phillips.
Lou Diamond Phillips.
Yeah.
It's a great name.
I was going to go somewhere with that, but I know what it was. Those older westerns. I got on this kick where I was watching just older westerns,
Like
and some
50s,
of those are
like 50s
Yeah.
style westerns.
and a lot of John Wayne movies, John Wayne westerns, and some of those are really good. Like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Watch that movie.
Okay, I will.
Watch that movie. Watch it. It is so good.
I think it's hysterical. Maybe you don't, but that he played Genghis Khan.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, is that not funny?
It's awful.
Like they didn't even try. They were
Yeah.
like, "You're a Mongol," and he was like, "All right, pilgrim."
Yeah. Like, hey, all right, you're making us millions. Let's just go ahead and try this.
Could you? And also to run that back, could you imagine somebody trying to do that today? Like if they were
No.
like, "Hey, Dusty, we play Genghis Khan." Like,
Well,
be
just
like,
they're trying to make a live action version of the Seven Whiteness, the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs,
and
and it's like
it's not going to be Snow White.
it's going to be seven mysterious, cave people or something.
Oh boy, you can't say dwarves. Is that the problem?
It's definitely tied to that.
Well, what can you say?
I have no idea.
I know there's some you can't say, but
I'm afraid to say.
I feel like dwarves is cool, right?
I don't know.
Gnomes? That's probably offensive.
Trolls?
I think that's probably worse. If I'm
not talking about people. I'm talking
okay.
about.
Oh, you mean the dwarves? You're saying like what should we call them besides?
Yeah, we
that?
could call them trolls. We could call them
Gnomes.
gnomes.
The seven. And the
Gnomes would be cute.
Gnomes would be fine. There's a movie called Gnomes.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like dwarves.
Yeah, but Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Oh, sorry.
Jimmy Stewart, John Wayne.
Jimmy Stewart. How does his voice go? He has a very famous voice.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I don't
My
know.
dog Baloo.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Okay.
All right. That's all I had for this.
Cool.
Any follow up, close up? What'd you get out of that?
I'm good. I mean, you can definitely literally tie anything you've ever seen to one of these seven. Anything you've ever seen or read into one of these sevens for sure. We just did it.
Yeah.
Like you can pick anything out of the air and go, what is this?
Yeah, like The Matrix. What was The Matrix?
What do they consider horror movies? I guess Overcoming the Monster?
Yeah, Overcoming the Monster.
What if they don't?
Tragedy.
See?
And
See
if
that
it's
guy?
poorly done, it's a comedy.
Yeah. Like we shot Michael Myers over 8,000 times with the gun. He's still there.
Yeah.
No, this is really fun. I enjoyed this actually. I enjoyed this episode a lot.
I did too, and I hope everyone at home or in their car listening to it on our podcast or wherever you can get your podcasts and on YouTube.
Yep. Don't watch it while you're driving though.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
bad. Poor form.
Yeah.
Hope you all enjoyed it. Give us feedback on what you liked and what you didn't like, and
Thank you, guys.
keep buying those shirts.
Yep. Charlie Mike, Never Weak in Apparel, guys.
Yeah.
Buy it there.
That's where to go. So we will see you next week with another episode.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.